I appreciate your patience.
All right. Thank you, Zoom. Okay, so I do have a little thing to kick us off. To share and there, go here, and then I'll hit slideshow. Okay, so community of practice meeting number one. Cynthia, we were just talking. We're not entirely sure. Haven't looked ahead if we get to do multiple of these, but call this one number one. I'll be the lead participant. The community of practice is a team-based learning approach developed by Etienne Wegner Trainer in the late 90s, I think 1998. And it's basically a way to collaborate and crowdsource knowledge on any given topic. We come together, we share our knowledge, our perspectives, some of the resources that we all kind of were throwing in the group chat in the Learning Center, talk about them, and I'll kind of help facilitate that. So we'll basically do this 5-minute kind of intro just to get to know each other and set the rules and whatnot. And then we've got 2 topics. We'll spend about 35 minutes on each topic. I will keep tabs on that. And then kind of move us along. And then we'll do like a 15-minute kind of self-evaluation reflection to cap the end. Any questions so far? Bless you. I saw that.
Hello.
All right. So I'm the lead participant. I act as like a moderator. I thought podcast host was kind of appropriate with the recording. So we'll put this all on Apple Pod and we'll go viral and I'll get you, you get residuals. So I'm to facilitate the conversation, but it is participatory. So I promise this is the most I'm going to talk the whole time. To that end, just kind of setting the ground rules. We always want to challenge ideas, but respect people. So like respectful phrases like help me understand, or let me see if I'm hearing you correctly. Have you ever considered, tried, common? We want to avoid stuff like you're wrong, that's stupid, you should have known better, typical, with sarcasm. And then I would never do that. So we really want to like challenge ideas and help kind of get to a deeper understanding of the topic, but make sure that everybody feels respected and ultimately safe. So not sure that anybody doesn't want to share because they feel like they get yelled at. So the content, 2 topics. We're given a list of like 4 or 5 on mostly are all sort of kind of surrounding IDPs. And so I chose 2, and they are topic 1 will be how to include the player in the assessment and the information gathering process. And then topic 2 is once we've gathered that information, we form the IDP, how do we incorporate it into our training sessions and the games that we coach? And then we'll do, so before we get to those, or actually kind of related to those, I got a little kind of icebreaker to get to know you. So I'm going to go around 2 different perspectives on this. Jose Mourinho quoted once in an interview saying that the team is more important than any player. I coach teams. I don't coach individuals. And then you have Johan Cruyff, who probably was the special one, who said that teams don't learn, individuals within the team learn. Development is a personal process, even when conducted in a team environment. And so I'm curious as to what you guys think. Is Jose right? Is Johan right? Are they both right? Are they both wrong? Who wants to go first?
Well, just looking at the 2 individuals, I would like to say that I'd agree with Cruyff more. I'm more of a Johan Cruyff fan probably than a Jose Mourinho fan, although I do think probably the truth lies somewhere in between. I don't know that. I mean, I kind of understand each one, but I don't think it needs to be as extreme as that. Yeah. I think teams can certainly learn. I think players can certainly learn. It's about kind of finding that cohesion between the 2, I believe.
That's probably what makes our jobs or our joys why we do this so difficult, because of the fact that how do you find the right balance? understanding when to build players up, but also understanding when to not really make an example of players, but finding a way to making sure that everyone knows that they're not bigger or more important than the team as the individual, but also not taking away that confidence and that style that some players have.
I appreciate you guys sharing that as well. I can kind of relate. John, your first question was you kind of did this icebreaker based on the perspective. So I think it's important to see the perspectives of both coaches. For example, Jose Mourinho is more Portuguese, right? He's focused on winning. That's his philosophy, emphasizing on like the winning the trophies and collecting all of that, versus Johan Cruyff is more of the beauty and creativeness of the player. You know what I mean? So that is like where both perspectives, are different. Personally, on my perspective, going back to your question, I don't feel there's a right or wrong. I feel it's more leading towards how we coach and our philosophies. I have been in great teams where we coached and we won, but that wasn't fulfilling for me. I think based on my experiences as a coach, what's fulfilling for me is being able to connect with the player. It's being able to say, you know what, I made a difference in this player, therefore he or she is playing the next level in England, versus me having a trophy, because I feel that I already had that trophy and I already went through that experience. And it just didn't, nobody remembered, So I can see that when I was younger, I had that perspective of Mourinho, like winning and just me. But then you get to a point where, again, based on our experiences, the most important thing is building these connections, So I rather build these connections like I am with you, and I follow that. That's my philosophy, following that with the team, and I've been very successful with that. It has fulfilled my philosophy and me. So
I think that the connections piece is a great one. Like most things, my guess would be the truth lies in the middle. And, it depends. Sometimes, you are thinking more about the team. Sometimes you're thinking more about the individual. We'll definitely get to that in the second topic about how we blend those two. But I think it's that, like James said, it's part of the challenge of being a coach is that you're trying to manage 11 individuals on the field and 7 or 8 more on the bench, and trying to figure out, what's the best for the group, and all at the same time. I had a friend of mine who brilliantly told me the reason that parenting is so hard is because 1 is easy, 2 is you're raising kids, then you're managing the relationship, then 3, you're managing 3 kids, and then they're all their relationships, and then you kind of exponentially go up. We have, anywhere from 22 or 18 to 22 kids, and all of those relationships we're trying to manage. So it's always kind of fun. So that does kind of lead us into our first topic, though. So how do you include these players in their assessment and in the information gathering process? So what do you guys do to build those relationships to get that kind of buy-in that's needed for an individual development plan?
In a perfect world, you can sit down and do a one-on-one before the season starts. Majority of your team, typically, unless you're moving from a club or moving to a different age bracket, you have a pretty decent retention. Usually everybody knows who their players are. They've had them for a year or so, maybe. But finding the balance of trying to get to know those players and their backgrounds without prying, really, or going too far into depth of who's your primary caregiver and stuff like that, or asking them the question of how life is outside of the field. I've really tried to take a step back and just ask myself questions about about players. Just how was their day at class? Maybe they had a horrible day at class. Maybe mom and dad just split up. Maybe a grandparent passed away recently. Trying to get that kind of, it's like almost like a job interview at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
What do you
Good way you put it.
what do you like to do when you're not playing soccer?
Sure.
Stuff like that. Yeah, but like try to compare it to an almost job interview. Ideally, does everybody have that time to sit down and meet with 18 players real quick? Yes and no, maybe. But if you don't see a player in one of your training sessions for a week because they're a multi-sport athlete or something, then all of a sudden maybe that player feels left out.
Sure.
But trying to include a player in a player assessment, you got to get to know them first. You have to know their background, their history, their style of play, their life outside of the lines, I guess.
Yeah, I think when I started coaching, I thought everything was about, activity one in that time frame, activity two, activity three, activity four, whatever. As I've coached more and more, I've really started to value like those little moments in between those things, right? So like as they're coming into practice, like getting in onto the field from the car, like that 5, 10 minutes, can you interact with one, two, three, couple of them at a water break, like can you get a little conversation going with, another one or two, and just valuing those moments that you guys have together that aren't necessarily like about soccer. Um, and then having moved to a high school environment as well, like we do a lot of, road trips, we're on the bus. There's good, valuable time to get to know kids then. But yeah, I think everything you said, James, as well, just trying to get to know them as people and not just as soccer players, but valuing those times that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think would be a very important part of a training session. I think if you can, utilize those moments, then that goes a long way as well.
Yeah, I agree with both of you as well. And like you said, trying to find that balance. I mean, you give the perspective of being a high school coach, you give the perspective of being a club coach. I, as a college coach, it was also very different. Um, Trying to find that balance. So scheduling the meetings before season, getting to know the player while the recruiting process. But I completely been in the same shoes as you guys have been. So I completely agree with you all as far as getting to know their story behind just the soccer player, right? I would also say that the managing the environment at practices definitely creates that sense of holistic approach, um, and that's important to again tie it into our philosophy and everything, right? And that is where also you see the vulnerability of some players when in the game or in practice when it gets challenging, and you also see the vulnerability of the parents, right? Which parent shows up, which parents ask questions, which parents are there. um, but when you going back to the question and tying it into the IDP, um, I do ask their goals of the players all the time, because there's two things that motivate a player is intrinsic motivation, that is within, why are they playing, or extrinsic motivation, which is the outside of it, right? So the intrinsic is like, oh, I want to play because it's my passion and I love it, or the extrinsic motivation of like, oh, my parents just want me to go to college and this is what I have to do, right? So that is where knowing that key as a coach has definitely helped me. What motivates that player? What's the goal of that player? And making it into their IDP, not necessarily mine. So yeah.
I really like, John, the thing that you sent out with just the little questionnaire that you would
Yeah.
send to your players. I mean, and then
Yeah.
certainly those are all good things. Um, but then it also kind of allows them to respond on their own time. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things I actually kind of enjoyed a lot about this whole process was reading a lot about the Gen Z athlete, which
Uh-huh.
like I feel like I know, but maybe I don't. Like I'm kind of, maybe I know less than I thought. But but yeah, I mean, just like, I think if they can have their own time to fill out something like this rather than, having a sit down, like I know if I'll just even try to start having a conversation about an IDP and I get players that freeze up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a one-on-one in person, face to face, and it's like, whoa, I'm not comfortable with this. So you send them a little questionnaire. They can, your face isn't right there. That pressure isn't on right there. They have their own timeline of when they can, answer it. I think that's a really good thing to do. So I like that.
Yeah.
That was how I squared the circle that James kind of talked about. How do you have 18, one-on-one conversations with kids? And so, I also find, finding that time incredibly hard. So this was my way of kind of, okay, this is something they can do on their own. Some questions here, not terribly deep, not terribly difficult. It gives me some basic background information on them because I'm moving around a lot. I did have a group, but they've aged out. So I'm learning new groups. I like kind of going into the season knowing where they see themselves. Some guys loftier than others. So that's always kind of all right. That's going to be an interesting conversation to have. I don't even know what David was meaning with what are your top 3 skills? Find out kissy face emoji. So like I gotta
Safe sport violation, I think. That's what that is.
yeah, I got to go back and follow up with him but at least I do like the IDP. This is my version of the IDP, and then we kind of have a follow up conversation. But I like we'll get into the more formal stuff. But
Yeah.
Matt, you brought up Gen Z, and we've got a lot of stuff in the chat. What is it about Gen Z that has surprised you most? Kind of learning and adapting to them, as a group.
Yeah, so I always felt like I was kind of borderline, like I grew up with technology, right? But it's not even like close. Like I mean, there's so much that I don't know, and I feel like I need to try and do a better job of like incorporating videos and different things of technology. Um, but yeah, I mean, like then, like I said, kind of like I don't necessarily realize that like maybe they would be a little bit shyer face to face because they spend so much time behind a screen.
Yeah.
And it's like you would like I almost would be like, oh, like, they're on the screen all the time. Like maybe they'd be more personable, but actually that's probably the opposite. Um, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was quite interesting. There's a lot of different things, and it was a lot that I thought I knew that maybe I don't know.
Okay. What was so James? How about you?
Um, I would say one of the biggest things that I've noticed over generations is, or even when I was younger, was getting out of the car to go to training and running over to training to get going.
Uh-huh.
I feel like
Oh my God, yes.
just the other day, I had to have a 5-minute conversation with my 15U boys team about what they can control. And if you know you're going to be a little late to training, don't show up 2 minutes late to training, walking over to our field on your phone. Obviously, you can't control how you're going to get to training because you're 15 and you're 14, but you can control once you get out of that car and how quickly you get over. And if you got your AirPods in and you got your phone in your hand and you still got your slides on, because they're so caught up with their phones. And another rule is when we have 3-minute breaks or 5-minute transitions from different portions of the session, girls are worse than boys. Our high school girls team is another thing we had to lay down a law with, is when you go over to get something to drink, we don't want to see anybody getting in their bag to do anything else but getting a drink. We don't need to be checking our snaps. We don't need to be seeing our Instagram stories, nothing along those lines. 3 years ago, I was at a high school game for my son, and one of the players on the field was yelling, not like, but in stoppages of play, yelling at one of his buddies that was on the sideline to make sure he got pictures of him playing because he was so concerned about getting them put on social media. That's just where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Is it like that for everybody? No. Do we still have a few of diamonds in the rough that are all about certain things and there's no social media or anything like that? I mean, yeah, we got to find those and hold on to them and not let them get influenced into the negative way. But I would say when you come to Gen Z, the social media aspect, I mean, stuff that most of us in this chat didn't have to worry about when we were growing up and playing. Yes, there are positives, but I feel like the mental, psychological negatives are worse.
So then what are some ways that we can overcome that to get their buy-in as we're kind of convincing, building those relationships, looking to get their buy-in for the individual development plan? How do you include them in that assessment information gathering process?
You could definitely, I mean, if they are going to be social media and on their phones, on their technology this much, we, instead of sending home papers and printouts of formations, and we can start sending out, I mean, Techni, like I saw Matt had a Techni app, but we use at ODP. If we need to get on their level of the social media and the technology, then we need to take advantage of that and start using Zoom calls, video calls, getting connected with players that way. So we're still at their level with the technology and everything along those lines, but then we're still getting our point across. So educating, like Matt said, what he learned, what he thought he knew enough about Gen Z, and now we can hopefully get on the same page and learn a lot more from them.
Yeah, I think like when I I don't have social media. I I don't like social media, but I think one of the things I read, it was like, as much as you don't maybe relate to some of those things, like, or agree with it, that's the way it is. So like you need to adapt. I think being able to try and keep up with the lingo, which is constantly changing, and also I find ridiculous at times some of the things they say. It's actually quite beneficial, like being able to just like understand the basics of some of the stuff that they say. That when they first said it, I was like, that's cap. What? Like the first time I heard that's cap, I was like, I have no idea what that means. And it's very simple, right? I mean, but just like being able to have that like common lingo with them and every once in a while throwing it back in their face, like I think that gets some buy-in from them. I mean, I think just the other day I said I was like kind of reffing during one of my sessions, and I made a call that I knew they weren't going to agree with, and I immediately said, "Yeah, that's no cap," or whatever. Immediately, kids started laughing and smiling, and I think you get a little buy-in there, um, to just show that you're trying to connect with them, like putting in that effort. And as much as I wanted to resist it at first, I think it's important that you at least put that effort in, and then that goes a long way.
But
I have
go ahead.
I have a sophomore in college that comes back and works. It's our owner's child. She goes to Marquette and she comes back and works at the company that I work at in the summer. And she has written down 7 different acronyms of what things mean. I have them on a Post-it note on my computer so I can start to pick up on some things.
My
I
sister,
know if they are if they're positive lingos or if they're negative lingos and what they mean. And it's been kind of helpful.
my
That's good.
my sister-in-law has 2 nieces. I think like one's like a senior in high school and one's just in college. And they put together a book for her with all
An entire
different
book.
sayings and things. And actually, I was quite proud of myself because I went over and visited my brother and my sister-in-law, I don't know, over Christmas or something one time. And I would say I got about like 70%. Like I did pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, no
But-
cap. Well done.
So before we get too deeper into this, I'm just curious, what is everybody's generation? So I'll kind of put you on the spot, but how old is everybody? What generation do you most identify with?
I'm
89 birth year. I'm millennial, I would think.
I'm an 85 birthday. I think I am the oldest. I think 84 is 84, 85 is when they changed. So I guess I would say I'm the oldest millennial.
An elder
think I-
millennial, I think
I
now.
think if I read that, yeah. If I did my research correctly, I am the eldest year millennial.
Cynthia?
I was born in 93, so I'm definitely a millennial, aren't I?
So
think
I'm
that timeline's right.
78, or I was born in 78. So I am at the very end of X, very beginning of millennials, depending on who's counting, or even a micro generation called Xennials, because
Right.
of the way we grew up with technology. So,
Yeah.
and I have two Gen Z kids of my own, which they just like to call me old now. So, but yeah, the technology piece I think is a really big hurdle. You kind of have seen one way that I try to meet them where they're at to see this resource. I don't know who put this in, but this is I really like this one a lot. I will say I could not find the study, but I have seen studies that say Gen Z kids know that they're on their phones too much. They know that the technology is not great for them, and they do want interpersonal relationships, but because of the way they've grown up, they don't know how to do it. And
Right.
so I think the way I approach it is this first interaction with them to get their buy-in is on their level, right? It's a survey that I knock up in Google, and then but the next one is face to face. Okay, we're gonna meet and we're gonna talk about it. And then we're gonna have a conversation. This is what you said. I don't know why you sent me an emoji to David. I don't still got to figure that one out. But like, let's set some goals. Let's figure out how we get you to the next level. So, but I think that's the way I kind of square the circle is, yeah, I'll meet you where you want me to, but I'm gonna pull you in because learning how to talk to a human face to face is kind of important. The other thing I will say too is I always try to have them talk to themselves as a group and problem solve at least once a week in practice. So like, instead of just a straight up scrimmage of, like 20 minutes and just let them play, do 2 10-minute halves and okay, guys, get together 30 seconds, what worked, what didn't work, solve it. And just start because there's another research out there, another study I read a long time ago that because they're on their phones all the time, they're not going out into the world and playing in the streets or playing in parks anymore. And so they don't know how to communicate. I remember, when we were kids, and I'm really dating myself now, we would just go around, knock on doors until we had enough kids to play baseball. And then we would just go to the elementary school and play baseball. And so that's just how we spent our summers. So how can we kind of recreate that? So, I love this. I don't know who put this in. I'm sorry I didn't see it, or just like I can go look actually. I think Matthew. Yep. Meet them where they're at. Connect with them. Empower their confidence. Challenge their entitlement. Good one. Genuinely listen to their interests. I think the biggest thing I take away from their generation is the phone and social media excels at lying to them. And it's a 30-second clip of Ronaldo's 5 greatest goals, but you haven't seen the thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that he's put into practice, and they just don't, you just trying to get them to understand that. So but they also the need for genuine connection, not social media connection where only you only post what's great. This one is big for me too, and it's being able to explain the why in everything. And I'm a really big believer in explaining why you're doing something to kids to get their buy-in. So I don't know if you guys had any success with that or something that how do you feel about that?
When it comes to, I would say on the field, it's huge. You can't just tell them do this, do that. Why are we doing this? Why are we making this run? What are we creating by doing this? Just sessions, planning out sessions. Why do you think we're doing this in this area of the field? Why do you think I have this set up in and around the center circle? Well, because we are incorporating 6, 8, and 10s and 9s in this part of the drill. Making sure that we're not just doing drills just for the sake of doing drills. If we have a drill set up around in the corner, and I have it set up so that they receive the ball across their body and they can play out going forward. Well, if you're receiving your ball and freeze the game and stand there and be like, if you receive the ball like this, where are your options? Right back into the corner. Receive the ball across your body this way so you can see everything. That is why we have it set up this way. That is why I would like you to do it this way. I mean, explain to them the why. Asking them why they did something, explain to them why you have something set up or why you would like them to do it this way, instead of just telling them that was wrong, you should do it this way. Move on. Here we go.
Oh, sorry, James.
No, go ahead. I was rambling anyway.
No, I saw this and it made me think of an incident we had this spring. We had a player who, this was not the way he should have handled it, but he's one of our strongest players. He was having quite a bit of success on the field, but we used him everywhere, and so we kind of like put him in different places. So we took him off so that we could then explain. Then we were going to put him. I think he was playing in the 11, and we were going to put him at the 3. Just kind of a different setup for how we wanted to attack and how to utilize him. And so we took him off briefly, and then we were going to explain to him what we were going to do. Immediately he comes off, and I'm one of the assistant coaches for our varsity team, and he goes straight to the head coach. He's like, "Oh yeah, you're going to take off your most creative player. That's smart." And he goes and sits down, and it's like, dude, like, give us 2 but I see it now, right? I mean, I'm starting to read this stuff, and it's like, yeah, we didn't give him the why right away. So then we had one of our assistant coaches go sit down, talk to him, say, "Hey, this is what our plan is. We took you off for a second so we can get organized, blah, blah, blah. We wanted to explain to you what we wanted to see from you." And then he goes up to the head coach and he's just like, "I'm so sorry, coach. I didn't realize that's what you're doing." But like totally bought in then. He comes off just all wanting to go sit on the end of the bench by himself. And then just one little conversation of like, "No, this is why we made this decision." And it's totally flipped. And he was our best player the rest of the game. So, yeah, it's big for him. So
we have I try to explain and involve them in understanding that at our age that I coach, everybody has a pretty good understanding of who the strongest players are on the team, who are some of the weaker players on the team. And when we go into league play or something, I mean, league play is where we try to develop. It's where the results don't really matter as much as if you're at an event where obviously we go to events and you try to win events. You can get a 4th game in a weekend as compared to just a 3rd game in the weekend, which is more opportunity to grow as players. But I like to explain to players on the bench, hey, this is a league game. We're going to get some of these other players a little more run in this game than typically they would get, because I'm not really concerned about this result today. So kind of having a weaker team out in the field and then letting those players know that are stronger, that might not get as many minutes that day, why they're not getting as many minutes as they normally would. So it's kind of a confidence to them that I believe in them, that they know they're strong players, but also humbling them and letting them know that there's a little bit more than winning a game 7-0 in league play and only maybe winning 2-1, but we're making these other players on our team stronger.
yeah, I think just that communication goes a long way. I mean,
meeting them on their level.
Yeah.
Like it says in that article you posted.
Cynthia, do you incorporate why into your training sessions when you're talking with your players?
Yes, guided questions are very important on my end. It definitely increases the cognitive, creative thinking to some players. Um, and how I incorporate is, um, let's say the winger is going up, right, and the 7th, the 11th, and we're looking at the view. I always ask the player first, what do you see, right? What, and then they give me their perspective, and then I ask them, okay, explain to me why you see that, right? And then they start thinking, and then they start asking questions. I also allow the players to look at my practice and ask questions if needed. I record my practice, and that's something that I think it's it's a good idea because since they're small, whether they move to another team or not, they have learned to question the why
Yeah.
all the time. And it happens even at 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And the club where I'm at, we've grown that. So it is important always to ask the why. As before, I grew up with a coach that I could never ask why, and it was just his say, and that was it, right? So that decreases their creativity at a point. Um, and it's about having that cognitive. Soccer's about being creative and thinking. So that's kind of how I implemented them always asking and knowing the why.
I taught for a long time, but I really believe strongly whether you teach, whether you coach, whether you run a team or a floor or an organization or whatever, that you never ever punish anybody for asking a question.
Sure.
And I had a really early on child psychology teacher way back in college who was like, you don't ever punish a kid for asking a question because they're doing what you're asking them to do. They're
Mm-hmm.
engaged in the learning process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the feedback that you get, oh, clearly I didn't explain this in such a way that
Mm-hmm.
they understood. I mean, that's your job is, oh, okay.
Yeah.
The worst, I think the biggest sin that we often make as coaches is we think, oh, well, I said it once in a training 3 months ago. So clearly everybody heard it, everybody understood it, and we can move on. And it's
Yeah.
like, you can't punish a kid for asking a question, and why is the most fundamental of all. Why, the other piece I would say before we moved in this is that when I ask this question at the end of what's the most important thing I need to know about you to help you succeed this fall, it leads me into a larger question. And you kind of see in the question before that, do you want to play soccer at college or the next level? It's not only the why is in relationship to this team, but what the why is in relation to you, James, you, Matt, you, Cynthia. Let's talk about where you want to go with your life and how I can help you get there. And I think that's really the biggest thing that I would add to any individual plan. It's not just the soccer stuff, it's the life stuff as well. And that kind of feeds back into the conversation we're having about Gen Z and, explain the why and investing in them, listening genuinely to their interests. Also, before we leave this, create a hardworking but fun environment, which we'll talk about in just a second, and then value the athlete development in all facets: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. Find ways to relate. Matt, you talked about this. I have a rule where I try to say every kid's name positively in the 90 minutes. So if it's either if I miss a kid, at the beginning because I'm setting up, but it's, hey, Matt, how you doing, man? You doing okay? That kind of stuff. Or like, James, I saw that. Really nice job. Something. Cynthia, great. I try really hard to say every kid's name positively once so they hear that from me.
Right. Right.
And then, just be consistent, right? If a rule is a rule, then, but explain the why of the rule and then hold to it, because they've got a lot of wishy-washy as the internet churns and changes. So, okay. So kind of back to our second question, then we'll move on a little bit. And that's topic 2. So we've gotten the IDP. We have solved Gen Z. We have met them on their level. They have learned to meet us on ours. Everything is kumbaya. We have a piece of paper that we all agree on. How do you incorporate that IDP into training and games? I pulled up, and as a PDF, I can go find it here. The Caitlin IDP. I'm gonna move something on my screen. So
Something Colton used is at his club. Is that what you
yeah,
said?
I think that's, if I remember correctly, and I think this is the one I missed because I was on my honeymoon. So forgive me, but I'll need a little help catching up. But
Congratulations.
thank you very much. For me, not for her. She could have done a little better. But uh, overall, this is really in depth. You can kind of see the progression phase. You can see, it's game model, game plan specific. There's a lot of check-ins. So I guess like first blush, kind of looking at this, what do you think? Is this something that you feel like you can use in your training sessions with your kids, or what are you thinking?
I think it looks very good. I think it's more in depth than I've probably ever been a part of an IDP. Um, you know, can we run it at our club? Certainly, I think you can. It depends on your numbers or whatever, but so much of it is the player leading it. One thing that I really liked about it is it does look like, attacking strengths, defending strengths, weaknesses, or areas of improvement. It looks like those are like options that you can click on, which I
Uh-huh.
think is really good. We we kind of revamped our IDPs a little bit last winter. But so many times in the past, you're sitting down with a kid and you're like, what are you good at? What are you not good at? And some of the things they say like aren't really relevant to your training or, and I like that this like basically comes straight from, I would assume, whatever their game model is. And
Yeah.
so those are all things that you're incorporating in your training every day. So then it kind of narrows the focus a little bit. It's not like, oh, I need, I don't even know what, but like some of the things that kids come up with that they feel like their strengths are, you're like, is that even really soccer related? I don't know. I'd
Well,
be interesting to look through here because I know you added that. But
uh,
or just like I'm really good at dribbling. Like that's so vague.
yeah.
Like at least like you're in a one of them for hers was like 1v1s. Like that's and then she was able to kind of come up with things based on it being a 1v1 is I'm gonna ask one of my teammates to stick around to work on my change of speed and change of direction. Well, now you've narrowed it down a little bit. And it's more soccer specific and so I like that there are like preset options to choose from rather than it just being kind of, you know, vague and I can kind of write whatever.
Yeah.
'Cause then it's more focused on your game model and
They're guided answers
yeah.
as compared to what do you like to do? Eat. I
Yes.
so
I think in depth is the right word. That was the biggest one that kind of got me when I read it. The other thing I would say too, and I lost it in the millions of, there it is, Caitlin, is I don't see a lot of data here. I mean, there's some good action steps. Ask teammates to stay after training so I can practice change of speed. I mean, so there's some good. I like the action steps, but it's how do you measure she got better at dominating 1v1 situations when I'm in scoring range? Um, I don't have a perfect answer to that. I can show you. I gotta move more stuff around. My drive, soccer. This is what we used, if I can find it. I do have a chart that I was using. Give me a second. I don't know. Cynthia, what do you think about the in-depth nature of the IDP?
Yeah, I actually used it when I studied my master's. That was exactly what we did. I added the data as I moved into the collegiate level because we had access to um, what is it called? Speedo and VL.
Okay.
Um, and that was important because at the end of the year, you know, we would sit back, reflect, and talk about, hey, this is what did you think you met your goals? You know, how can we help moving forward into your sophomore, junior year? So, yeah, it's very important to be detailed with that. But again, you know, and be consistent, right? I think for me, the not the weakness, but just being honest is the consistency, right? How often do we meet and do we actually go through it, right? Because sometimes in season we get excited and we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do it, and then mid-season starts and we're like, holy cow, like I need to order uniforms, I need to pay this, you know. So I guess being honest with ourselves. So but going back to your question, how do I like it? I've used it, I've implemented, and I'm very familiar with it. So
So
I would have to add that
yeah,
for the U12s and below, it was very different. What we did with them is we added like a color or like a picture, and it was very different with the little ones. When you look at the recreational goals, and it was less detailed, so it does change based on age.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I would this is a form that I use and have adapted over the years. And I always like quantitative data along with qualitative data. So numbers or something that we can measure versus something that we just kind of talk about. And so this divides it technical, tactical, mental, physical, and then there's some subcategories. Each one of those gets averaged out, or we give a score based of those. And it, you know, unless you're tracking a kid, for every practice and every game, and looking at how many right-footed passes they complete, left-footed, there's a way to get granular data. This is kind of how I worked with the tools that I have. I do not have access to tracking vests and all that cool stuff that I get Instagram ads for. But the idea is just, we give them a score: one, poor related to their age group; two, below average; three, average of their age group; four, above average; or five is excellent. And then, kind of score it out and weighted. And then there's a qualitative uh, some notes at the bottom where we can kind of put it around some context, so you're not just a number. But I think I like the way that they relate all of this to the game model, so that if dominating 1v1s is an area of focus, that's you can. The other thing I would say too is this: I would take this one sheet and put it more on an aggregated spreadsheet like this, so then I could group guys together. So I kind of did this here. Like if I wanted to sort, so like all of my attacking mids, I could work, if all of them said 1v1s was something they wanted to improve, I knew I would be focusing on them individually as we were doing a 1v1 drill that day. Again, it's a level of organization. And Cynthia, you're absolutely right. You get in the middle of the season and you're ordering uniforms and trying to book hotel rooms, and you know, and your
Yeah,
assistant calls in sick that day, and you're like, okay, here it is. And then
I
I don't,
agree.
I don't know about you guys, but like it seems like every time I plan like choose it, a finishing practice, all of my forwards and wingers are sick, and it's just defenders. So it's like, all right,
Yeah.
Building out our
Yeah.
back this week, and both my keepers are gone. So
Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah. So I guess I mean, is it just, kind of sitting down with each of these and saying, okay, Kate wants to work on 1v1 and wants to work on finishing, and then you're just kind of making a mental note that day? Are you making notes yourself? What do you think we can do to kind of get more individual training into our group sessions?
Um, like resources is the biggest thing,
Mhm.
like you said,
Yeah,
and not just
good point.
like the physical resource, like the physical tools, the vests, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, are you at a club or a program or a college
Yeah,
school where you have 3 coaches? All right,
yeah,
for the last 20 minutes of today's session, I'll be working with defenders, defending 1v1 in the defensive third. Nines, tens, sevens, and 11s are going to be over with Coach Cynthia, and they're going to be working on combination play in the final third to go to goal. Yeah, that would be fantastic if we could center it around that and have coaches take individual things like you said, when you see stuff on social media. Look at look at this finishing session. Well, there's all the soccer balls in the world, all the mannequins, all the dummies, and world class players, and then trying to replicate that into your session just doesn't work. You got to have the resources and be able to do that kind of stuff. So if you have that, I mean, we did that at the end of high school sessions. If we had if we had more than 2 coaches there, the last 20 minutes, probably once a week, was uh, focused on positions, and they worked with other coaches on that. And then you came at the end. All right, you guys were working on defending in the final third and shot blocking, and offensive attacking players were working on going to goal. Right now, we're coming together for the last 10 minutes, and you guys are going at them, doing what we worked on, and you guys are defending it. Yeah, but outside of that, trying to plan training sessions around individual aspects. And I know USSF is big on, you're running a session based on defense, try to focus just on defense with your coaching points. Um, it's a double-edged sword.
yeah.
How do you not coach up a player who just maybe torch somebody? That would be coaching up an offensive player in a defensive training session. So,
So no, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
Uh,
You're going.
I was going to say, so one tool that we have in the coaching toolkit are 1v1s or pullouts. So, in the flow, you say, hey, Matt's playing as the outside back, the 3, and we're on our touch line, and hey, Matt, step over here for a second, in the middle, just whatever the individual coaching point is. Where do pullouts and those kind of 1v1s, not literally 1v1s, but one-on-ones, in the session fit in? Do you guys use them? Do you like them? Is it a tool that's kind of underutilized? What do you think?
Um, what I like to do a lot of is kind of like I'll adjust my coaching position, so that I can, like, if we're going to be working on, I don't know, some building out of the back or whatever, I might go stand by a goalkeeper, and then I can kind of coach one-on-one while it's still in the flow. Or then, if then, we have successfully built out, and now we're in attacking phase or something, then you can kind of have a chat with your goalkeeper. I'm not the biggest like freeze guy. Like, sometimes that's good, but I'd rather it be flowing as much as it can be.
Yeah.
So for those 1v1s, rather than just yank somebody out. And I've worked with coaches that will literally do that, like in a game. They'll be like, come here. And usually it's like a league game. It's not like a tournament, but they'll have a kid literally come over. And that is actually, I've seen that be beneficial when I thought that was just like a dumb thing to do. But yeah,
I've
I mean,
done
I,
that
I try and
before,
what
Matt. I've done that before.
have you?
Told somebody to switch sides. Had the 7 come over and play the 11 because I want to talk to him, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, the ball gets switched over to the side of the field, and I'm like, you know what? Listen.
I just feel like I would time that poorly every time if I tried to do
Just get pounded down that side of the field or something.
it. But yeah, so I try and just adjust my coaching position as much as I can to utilize those one-on-ones.
Cynthia?
I have done both. I, I have done that. I have implemented both one-on-ones during games and at practices. And again, it goes back to how the player responds, right? that's important. So knowing, hey, does this player, can I push him a little bit more? Oh, excuse me.
Bless you
Gosh.
twice.
Bless you. Salute.
Oh, 3 times.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sorry. Can I push them a little bit more? Can I, how do they best respond to my feedback? So, but yeah, I've done it on the 1v1s, just pull them out on the side. I've done it collegiately and kind of like most of the time. I think it also shows respect for the player. That's important to me.
I
So
think
that
that's
they understand that when you say that shows respect to them, they understand that you talking to them and
Yeah.
coaching them up and teaching them is more
Yeah.
important of what is actually happening in the match at that moment.
Yeah, that's I like the way you just put that. So thank you.
That
Yeah,
like their development and their understanding of what you're trying to teach them is more important than literally what is happening in the match at that moment.
sure. Yeah.
It's a
I
really
do.
powerful message. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that's a really good point though too, of just knowing your player, because I do think that, like, while yes, it shows that you're committed to their development over whatever the result is, that
Mhm.
some kids
Oh, excuse me.
would
Sorry,
like
guys.
that praise, like that one-on-one, like, hey, that attention. And other kids, I think, would shy away from that. But like if you're
Mhm.
calling out a kid during the middle of a game and everyone's seeing that, all these parents are seeing that, they might, you know, try and hide then almost. Like I think it is very important to know your players. And um, while I feel like I take that into consideration, I don't know that I always do. And I should have a quick think first, like, is this a player that will, you know, shrink now because they're getting this attention, all this attention on them during the middle of a game, or is this somebody that's gonna build them up? So I think that's really important to know your player.
Yeah.
I have a just quick example of the negatives, of obviously there's tons of them, but negatives of not knowing your players and their situation. I started coaching right out of high school. I was a head varsity coach at the high school I went to when I was 22, and I didn't have all these tools. I mean, I was still learning and growing myself. But senior night, I had a senior who it was walk out and do all that kind of stuff that you would do at your high school, and he didn't have anybody there to walk out with him. I didn't know he didn't have any there to walk out with him, and my assistant coach offered to walk out with him, so he's not there by himself and everything like that. Thought I was doing a good thing for him, and it ended up backfiring. The kid had a panic attack, and because I didn't know his background, I didn't know his situation of why there wasn't anybody there, and then probably pushed a little too hard of trying to make a good situation out of it and pushing to let my assistant coach walk out with him and stuff like that. He rather just didn't want to go at all. He ended up having a panic attack, and he didn't even play in the senior game because he was so emotional about it. And I didn't know his background. I didn't know why there wasn't anybody there. If I knew there was going to be somebody there, I would have set something up sooner. So yeah, getting to know your players and understanding what's going on in their life is huge.
So we're back to our 2 polls: getting to know your players and the team environment, getting to know and the individual relationships. Does the team learn? Do individuals learn? And I think we at the beginning of the conversation kind of talked about both, but it's finding that balance of getting to know them as individuals, but then managing the group together. The question, still kind of chewing on though, is how do we incorporate those individual moments in training, in games? And I think I too have called kids over, balancing who the kid is, balancing what the message is going to be, because you don't have a whole lot of time to deliver a sermon in the middle of a game that's flowing, and then also finding time in the game state is also, like if there's a stoppage really fast or a throw in or, something where we can kind of like take a breather and call a kid over real fast and point something out or share something. But it always is a balance. It always is a balance. So, what other things can we do to kind of have those individual moments?
I, over the past year or so, have really done a lot more note taking in matches.
Okay.
So I can revisit it maybe after the match or at the next session. Something that I liked that they did in the match, something I thought that maybe it could be a learning experience from the match. I know you do. Most coaches do note taking for post game and note taking for halftime or pre match talks. But I've slowly started to start taking notes on an individual basis for an IDP so that we can revisit it. We don't have all the luxuries of having a VO at every single match and being able to send it out. So the human element of old pen and paper comes into play quite a bit.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I had a coach. He was meeting with the player. There was kind of a discussion of how can I fit into maybe the top team. I like to play here or there. But my ultimate goal is I want to be starting with that top team. And he sat him down and said, okay, well, if you want to be in the top team and you want to play this position, okay, we're going to need this from you. And and I guess this could be a pen or paper thing as well. Had a VO and he went back and was like, okay, he did the data and it was, you played 10 passes, but 9 of them were either switching it from side to side or negative. We didn't go forward. And in this X position for this team, we need you to be going forward in this situation, and so then he was able to kind of incorporate data from a game, from a match. And again, that helps when you have VO. If you just had your pen and paper, maybe you could assign like 2 or 3 players per game, and you can look at what they want to do, and you can maybe try and track data for X amount of time during a match. Again, as a head coach, if you don't have an assistant coach, that might be difficult to do. But if you're in a situation where you have an assistant coach that could maybe take over the big picture, and then you could do some note taking, or vice versa. You could have an assistant coach assigned to 1 or 2 players per game, and then you could try and mark down some data, and then you can have what they wanted to work on from their IDP. You're incorporating it into a game and then evaluating that way. Could be something you could do.
Cynthia, you still there? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I just didn't want you guys to see me sneezing. After a while, I'm like, okay, enough. Like,
I get you. I will say too, I don't live in the data-driven world. I mean, I don't have VO at all in my games. We get it. I don't know. I try to get like 4 or 5 games, at staggered intervals so that we can actually see if, we're making progress on some of the things that we're talking about. But because, even with the model that I showed you, those numbers are subjective because they're me. There's no like hard data there. I am always asking my assistant coaches about my opinions of.
Jeez.
Yeah, hi. I'm always asking my assistant coaches about my opinion of players. Like, hey, I'm seeing this from Cynthia. Are you seeing it too? Are you seeing something else? I just want to make sure that I'm seeing this correctly, good or bad. But I really tried because I understand that it's not numbers. I love that example, Matt, of like, examine, a couple games and, you made 10 passes. They were side to side or negative. I mean, that's fantastic. I'd love to get to that level. But because it's subjective, I just try to always check myself and say, okay, my coach is Giovanni. So it's like, Giovanni, am I seeing this right? Are you seeing this? Like, just make sure that we're on the same page. So we're presenting a good message to the kid, a unified message to the player. James opened doggy daycare for a minute there.
There's 3 of them here, and my daughter just came home.
So they're really excited.
Oh yeah.
She's the favorite of the dogs, huh?
Yeah, not really. I mean, they do it to everybody that comes home, but she's I don't know. They're done now. They moved on.
Cynthia, any other ideas for incorporating IDPs in the training and games?
Definitely having a report with the parents, based on if it's a recreational situation, having a report with them definitely helps. I do the same as you, John. I asked my assistant coach, hey, did you see this? Did you see A, B, or C? So I do agree with all of them, the ones that you guys mentioned. I done it at one point in my life, and I still do it. Um, I would also be careful, like as far as I am very careful as far as like the Instagram situation. Um, like so, I don't allow players to follow me or anything like that. I put that boundary, but that doesn't mean that I don't care about them, right? It doesn't mean that I'm not there for them on their IDP, right? But yeah, I mean, that's basically how I have incorporated. So yeah.
Do you treat the delivery of the information differently as we'll call it like a coaching point? Like if you
Mhm.
do a 1v1 or like Matt mentioned, changing position, which I like and I agree with. Do you do it differently if it's positive feedback or if it's negative feedback? Do you approach
Um,
those differently?
no, I do it the same. I again, it goes back to who am I coaching?
Okay.
How do they receive it? For example, um, I'm gonna just be an example about a kid, right? Um, I have a kid that has a lot of trauma, and if I tell him a certain way, the negative stuff, he shuts down. But if I tell him the positive way, he shuts down. So he believes he's never enough. But this kid is talented. He believes that because of the previous experience that he had, and he continues to have. So my feedback with him, or the way I interpret things with him, has to be a little bit different, but it's the same. It's different on the way I interact with him. I have to give him, instead of a 5 minute call, I have to give him a 20-minute or 30-minute call, because I have to explain in detail. That's just how his brain works, of the why, and how this is not a reflection of him not being enough. However, I have this amazing young lady that is fantastic and phenomenal, and I know that I don't have to sugarcoat it, or I shouldn't say sugarcoat it. I don't have to um, explain to her um, that it's not her fault, and have a different perspective with her. I can do a 5 minute phone call and say whether it's positive or negative, but my tone is always the same. I just add more time, and I'm just cautious on the way I choose my words.
And so those are phone calls. You do the same thing in the training session, like
Yeah,
in the moment.
yeah, I do. I really, again, based on my philosophy and my experiences as a coach, I really emphasize when and who am I speaking to at training. If it's on one, if I say the line of four or the back line, this is what I'm asking, then my tone changes, and I explain and I tell them collectively, what can we do better? But if it's on one, I'm very thorough and remember their backstory and remember little details that kind of tell me who that identity, on who am I coaching, whether it's ODP, because I'm very thorough on, like, I don't want to ever, Maya Angelou says, right? I mean, I understand coaching, but Maya Angelou said, you can never forget, people will forget what they say, but they will never forget how you make them feel. And that has really stuck to me based on my experiences. Do you know what I mean? And my philosophy. So again, yeah, I'm very, I catch and pick up on things when it comes to to that on my players, negative or positive, because I want them to be successful, and I know, I'm also a big part of their success, just like they're a big part of mine. So,
John, you said how you deliver the message and the environment and the atmosphere you deliver the message. Do you treat it differently
yeah,
based on it? And
especially,
you have to.
yeah.
I had to pull two kids while I was trying to get a point across in a brief little 5-minute team meeting. And yeah, they're 8th grade boys, so they can't stand still or keep their hands to themselves. But I had to split them up. And then they started looking out of the corner of their eye and giggling and laughing still. So I said, all right, everybody go get a drink. You two stay. So
Yeah.
I had to what I said to the two of them, I probably couldn't say in front of the whole team. And it was, hey, you two are very good players. And this is why I am a little bit more hard on you two, because you are both good players, and I don't want to see you wasting opportunities and wasting your talents. So I need you to give me a little bit more. Obviously, I can't say that in front of the entire group because I'd be tearing down other players in front of other players.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I had to tell them, hey, enough is enough. You're both good players. I don't want to see you waste your talents, waste your opportunities, because you can't stay focused. And granted, one of them was my own damn kid, but it was, we have to be smart about this and how we deliver the message and the atmosphere we're delivering the message. It changes. I wouldn't be able to say some of that stuff in front of everybody. So I had to pull them aside, and the next opportunity that came across was they were just gonna be kicked out of practice. They were a distraction to practice, and I went back to the periodization of why we're trying to get so much out of training sessions and in certain areas. And I said, and I need everybody focused. And if you guys aren't focused, you're not going to get everything out of this session that I'm trying to get across. So the atmosphere and how you deliver message and who you're delivering the message to, is huge.
Yeah, I think that's great that you mentioned that, James, because I can totally relate as well. So, yeah, it's definitely, and yeah, definitely a huge point. Obviously, in the professional way, you're trying to keep a job, so that's different, and it is a psychological game. But I mean, you nailed it as well, so it's important.
So I mean, I'll be even more crystal clear. I agree with both of you, but I'll be more crystal clear. Like, I've been in matches and the opposing coach is belittling his own players during the game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm sure you've never had this experience ever. But yeah, I mean, like, screaming, Matt, what the hell are you doing? Blah, like, and I'm
Yeah.
just thinking to myself as I'm listening to this person, and I'm just like, do you need a hug? Like, just because, I mean, it's just,
Oh, I want to
I,
coach for you, John.
I just really like, I'll me personally, and I'll open it back up, but like, I believe you praise in public,
Yes.
you criticize in private, but there are times where the group benefits from learning from Matt's mistake, right?
Yeah.
And so I will, you never say never. And so, we're back to the middle ground. So I will go, I will, this is where I will use a freeze sometimes. I don't use as much as I used to, but I'll use a freeze. So I'll go, I'll go, okay, hold on a second. Let me paint a picture real fast. Matt did something here, and I'm going to criticize him, but don't worry, he can take it, and we're all going to learn from it. And, it's cool because we're all going to make this mistake at one point, and I want to make sure that we know what we're talking about. And then I'll go in, and paint the picture and go through the coaching point. But, even in that moment, trying to just, create a space for psychological safety of, you're
Yeah.
all going to make mistakes. But again, finding those little moments of, not belittling Matt and yelling and screaming, what the hell are you doing from the sidelines? Because I just can't see. I wouldn't want my kid to play for that, and I wouldn't ever want to do that to somebody else's kid. So
Yeah. Yeah. And John, you put it very thorough, and I completely agree with you on that because unfortunately that's the culture we're sometimes into when it comes to soccer. It does affect kids, and the data doesn't show any signs of it getting better at times, right? Um, because but still, um, young boys and young girls, they definitely leave the sport every year. So um, that plays a huge factor, and yeah, so I can relate.
Yeah, you see that a lot, unfortunately, at least in my environment, run into that all the time. It kind of makes me think going back to the Mourinho and Cruyff quotes, though, where it's like leading the player, but then also being able to lead the team. If you can, I agree, like the more you can criticize like privately, I think the better. But if you can create an environment and training where the players and the team understands that that is a safe space to make mistakes, like it's a good thing to make mistakes because then you're growing and you're learning. And if you can get the team to buy into that, then I think it makes those interactions where it's in front of everyone a little bit more beneficial. So
And
it's like you can manage your team in the right way, then it allows you to manage the players in different ways as well.
yeah,
So
recognizing my position in this conversation, I will say too, how you have that conversation switches specifically with genders. And the way you coach boys versus you coach girls. And I coached high school JV2 girls for a couple of years. And I got into the habit of one of the first things that I said to them as I would get a new group or, some returning, and you always got changes with kids moving up or whatnot. But with girls especially, I would say I am never ever going to yell at you or belittle you for making a mistake. I want you to try things. I want you to take risks in the way that you don't have to tell freshman boys to take risks. In fact, quite the opposite. Usually it's guys, put the flame down, sit down, James, stop touching each other, like but but I find one of the things that I always had to say, and just reaching individuals is, I want you to try things. I want you to make mistakes because that shows me that you're being brave. And this game rewards bravery. It rewards creativity, and it's one of the greatest lessons that this game will give you moving forward. So, any other last thoughts about either topic? You know what? I'll open it up. Either one, how to include the player in the process or how to incorporate the IDP into the training session or games. Anything we haven't covered?
I think we nailed it.
We're the best group, John.
And
I think,
I expect my royalties paycheck when this goes viral.
yes.
well, James, you're gonna have to split yours with your dog now. So
Another
Matt.
daughter showed up with her boyfriend. They went nuts again.
So the last piece of the equation, according to Community of Practice, is self-evaluation. Let's assume for just a moment that we're going to do this again. Is there anything that we would like to change for next time? And I'll take some notes.
I just say we don't change anything. I say you lead it every time, John.
Okay. Matt?
I need to get my articles in earlier.
I need to get mine in quicker too.
Okay.
I that is my self-reflection. I did not periodize myself throughout the week well enough.
I felt like I did a good job of going through the content. John, I thought you did an excellent job leading it. I thought the four of us did a very good job of reflecting and talking about it. I personally need to get my content in sooner, so everyone had more time to look at it. So
I don't know about
I
you guys,
apologize.
but it definitely feels like there's more work in the B than there was in the C.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I
100%.
I took my C in 2018, so I've been out of it a while.
Yeah.
But yes. And
It's
I talked to a couple people in Iowa. Barrett, who took his and Ryan Rink who took his, and they said it is a lot more work than the C.
Yeah, it feels like it's doubled, if not tripled, but yeah, it definitely feels like the level's gone up, which I
For sure.
would have assumed going into it, but
Right.
yeah. So, Cynthia, anything that we can do differently the next time?
No, I guess. Oh, you know what? I guess it would help if you send the link on message, but like the Google link.
Okay.
Because sometimes I have my iPad, so it's there, but it is my responsibility to check the U.S. Soccer Learning Center, so I'm not saying that. But no, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the time you took with each slide and the time you took to prepare. So I think it's important. As for myself, definitely adding my articles a little bit quicker will be fantastic.
You set the bar kind of high, John. I'm not really looking forward to having to lead one of these myself.
You're next. You didn't get the memo?
Yeah, I gotta look for. I will totally confess, I am living like one assignment at a time right now. And
Yeah.
I was supposed to be coaching one team, and I am now coaching two teams in a
Oh,
pool session.
lovely.
So I'm running sessions with like 25, 26 kids now. You know, I have some assistants that are helping, but it's just like, okay, this was not what I was planning. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have my one team during the B, and it'll be great, and I'll just, you know, use them as my guinea pigs, and it's just kind of ballooned into something else. So, I really do appreciate you guys. I think we have hit the 5:30 mark, so we're an hour and a half in. But really appreciate you guys, the conversation, your insights. It's really good stuff, guys. So. I think with that, we will call it a night until tomorrow. I'll see everybody then, and I will take care of getting this downloaded or uploaded or whatever Colton wants. So
Awesome. Appreciate it, John.
John,
Appreciate
Matt,
you guys.
All of you guys.
Cynthia, good night, guys.
you're good people.
Good
I don't
night.
care what James says about you. I like you.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
See you
Bye.
guys.